Buckman. Here. Mr. Woolman. Here. Mr. Strong. Here. I am here. Mrs. Ward.
Here.
Mr. Schrader. Here. Mr. Phelps. Here. We are here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Over the agenda. Motion?
Second.
Anything in the all those in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. First item is consent agenda. So moved.
Second.
Anything in consent agenda for consideration? All those in favor?
Okay, we'll start actually with the recognition of Ethan Solemn. Is that how you say it?
Thank you. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
We're going to come up over by the mic. So actually, Jeremiah, before we get the certificates, would you just explain a little bit about his contribution?
Yeah, so each year, typically Eagle Scouts have come forward wishing to do a project on district property. I've worked with Ethan for the past year as he planned out what his project would be. So he took some time to install benches on the Bay Lane baseball diamond. So really nice benches that replace some very old ones in need of replacing. So thank you so much for your contribution and your work and arranging everybody to do the work.
We're very proud of you. When did you receive your Eagle then? Did you have the ceremony yet or not yet?
I haven't done the board review, but the project was the last thing in my process.
So what's the projected date of that?
Probably December or January.
Okay, very good. So President Pegalski's here to recognize you on behalf of the board.
So we have a certificate of appreciation for you. I'm going to read it. It says, Certificate of Appreciation. The Muskegon Norway School Board presents this certificate in grateful recognition to Ethan Solom for his service to the Muskegon Norway community as an Eagle Scout. Through his vision, dedication, and leadership, Ethan installed benches on the Bay Lane Middle School baseball diamond as his Eagle Scout project. This project demonstrates an important and caring service orientation. The Muskegon Norway School Board commends Ethan for his contribution to the students and citizens of the Muskegon Norway community. Thank you and best wishes in your future endeavors. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, my second item is actually to introduce Test Corners and Chris Kinsler, and they will provide the board with a board report for Test Corners. Thank you, Chris, and you can introduce your team.
Good evening, and thank you again for being here this year. My name is Chris Kinsler. I'm the principal here at Test Corners, and as always, I'm just so honored, as we all are, to have you here tonight. And we thank you for your time. And we look forward every year to being able to share a little bit more with you about what we're doing here at Test Corners, because we're proud of so many of the things that we're doing. As you know, our district as a whole is working on literacy and improving our achievement in literacy. And so tonight what we're going to do, we're going to zoom in on one of our goals on our Eye on the Goal plan, and that is the one at the bottom that under continuous improvement. And it's student goal setting, and the goal is 100% of TC students will set, monitor, and report out reading goals in grades K through 4. And so, like any good teachers, we have our targets up for tonight. And we're going to give you an overview of how we get to goal setting, and that is through assessments, rubrics, and goal setting. And so, without further ado, I'm going to have each of my members introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about how we get to that goal of goal setting.
Okay, I am Charlene Dupler. I am the Instructional Resource Coach here at Test Corners, and I am going to share with you our target number 1, and that is to share with you how Test Corners uses assessments. So up here first, you'll see that all teachers in our building use assessment. We believe in the instructional impact of assessment. We also know that assessment can substantially improve student achievement. And we really believe that assessment is that bridge between teaching and learning. All teachers participate in this work. The next idea that I'm going to address for you is around our collaboration meetings. We are very proud at Test Corners of the way that we collaborate weekly. So teams meet once a week, and we bring assessments and student data and all kinds of information to those meetings. We meet once a week, like I said. The meetings start at 7:30 in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning. Individual teams decide to meet our goals for this meeting, what time we need to begin. On Wednesdays, our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade teachers meet. On Thursdays, our kindergarten and 1st grade teachers meet. Special ed teachers participate in the meetings of the grade level of the students that they work with. The principal, the school psych, and the coaches participate in all the collaboration meetings. And these meetings really are about assessment, in literacy, and in numeracy. The next thing I'm going to talk about in regards to our assessments is that they are strongly standards-based. We study the standards to make sure that a team has a common understanding of what the intent of the standard truly is. When we have that common understanding of a standard, it really helps us to design instruction with really clear learning intentions for our students. The next thing that we do once we unpack those standards and uncover what they mean and what they mean for our students is that we look at instructional strategies that help our students meet the expectations of the standards. So we design instruction specifically based around all those standards and all the pieces. And the next thing that we do once we understand those standards is write even more assessments that will help gather data about our students' understanding of standards. So our assessments are standards-based. The next thing up there, that idea that I will address is about every student. Every student at Test Corners really deserves instruction that is geared at their specific needs. And that's what our assessments try to do. We assess minute by minute and day by day. So you might be thinking, wow, lots of assessment. Assessment has changed a lot. Sometimes when we think about assessment, we think of that unit test or a pop quiz or the WKCE exam or even the Badger exam. But the type of assessment that we're talking about is formative assessment. And on this anchor chart over here, we asked Test Corners teachers to write down some of the different things they do in their classrooms day by day, minute by minute, to assess their students. And on that chart are a lot of the different ideas that the teachers came up with, and I think I'll just highlight a couple of them. On that chart are ideas where teachers are incorporating technology when they assess. We have teachers who use Kahoot and Clickers and many different types of technology-based assessment tools, Google Forms or Google Surveys. Another thing that you'll see up there in regards to the type of assessment that we use is a lot of it's observational. It's just that day-to-day observation. An assessment tool that we really like is the Reading Engagement Inventory. And that is just an observation type assessment that we do often with our students. So on that chart are a bunch of different strategies and techniques of many of the tools that we use to assess. Formative assessment is really the central process of instruction. We know that what students learn as a result of our instruction is sometimes unpredictable. And we use the formative assessment tools to continually monitor the student understanding. All of those tools are the different types of things that we do to know at any time what our students' current understanding of what we've taught is. So I've shared with you some ideas about assessment. Some of my colleagues are now going to share with you how we use rubrics and how we use goal setting to help our students achieve the expectations and standards.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you again for coming. I see some of my former students. I think it's awesome you came here tonight. My name is Leslie Spurk, and I teach first grade here at Test Corners. And just to kind of pre-assess where my audience is at, raise your hand if you know what a rubric, if you don't really know what a rubric is. Raise your hand if you kind of know what it is, but you couldn't tell anyone else how they're used. Okay. Raise your hand if you know what a rubric is and you've used one on yourself or someone else. Okay, pretty good half. All right. We're doing something right here. Good. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a rubric. Would you mind passing something else? Oh, you did it right. All right, so I made a sample rubric to go exactly with what I'm preparing. So it's a rubric on me, on my portion of the presentation. You don't have to score anyone else. But as you can see, my standards are clearly defined. Everyone performs better if they know what their expectations are, children, adults as well. A rubric is a way to pre or post assess, but also as a learning tool. And this example that I'm going to be showing you on a video, and I'll be passing around some student samples as well, it's part of our SLO, our student learning objective. We are encouraging children to be able to demonstrate their comprehension when they read a story by being able to retell it. And so the video will show how I not only use it as a pre-assessment, going to be using it as a post, but how the children are using it themselves so that they can improve their own student learning. These are student samples of children doing their homework, and this is what you'll be seeing. She's scoring someone else.
Last and in the middle and finally, and then I think for the solution in the problem, and I think you got because you told me to see it, but you didn't tell me the main solution.
So she said, so you got it 3.
Said all the kids
told all the reasons why.
And telling me what you're doing. And telling me what you're doing.
I'm doing what I can work on.
What can you work on?
The center method.
Okay, what are you going to do?
I'm going to write it down on the yellow note and put it in here so I can remember to read the teacher message.
Okay.
So as you can see, it's a powerful learning tool. The children know what they need to do, and they can help guide themselves into doing that. It's very powerful because they're making them up themselves. They're very engaged, and they're very motivated. And so as you can see, it's a great pre-assessment, high-level engagement, motivation. They understand what the targets are. They're clearly defined, and they can help set and accomplish their individual goals. And with that, I will share with you 2 other colleagues who are going to talk more about goal setting. But while they get ready, if you wouldn't mind turning and talking and telling your neighbor how you would rate me on my rubric and why you would do so. This is the kind of stuff we're asking our students to do. Go ahead. We have about 10 seconds.
Professor?
Let's go 3 points.
Head visual. Select them if you want, and this will help to guide my further instruction. I can make some goal setting. You can, if you wanted to write out, you could.
That'd be a horrible thing.
You can just keep them as a souvenir. Next time someone that can be actively used in a rubric is not there.
So they keep working out.
No, you never have.
Just so we're all clear, you're supposed to put the rubrics away now. You're not assessing us. That was just for Lucy. I'm Rebecca Benedict. I teach 4th grade here, and we're going to be talking about how we set goals with our students.
And my name is Becca Bauman. I'm a special ed teacher here at Test Corners. I work with Becky in her classroom. We co-teach literacy together. So a lot of the work that's being done in her classroom is a product of our work together, which has been a new experience for us, and it's been very exciting. So what we did with our students is, this is kind of the process that we follow. So we collect data, and that's from all those formative assessments that Shar mentioned earlier in the presentation. So everything that was on that chart are things that we've done. Some things we wanted to highlight is our STAR data. So that's the universal screener that all of the kids in the district are taking. So we look at that, running records, trying to figure out what book level they are, an interest inventory, finding out what kids like, what they don't like, so we can help them pick out books. Our conferring data, that means we're meeting with them and talking to them and learning more about them, looking at their book levels, looking at what we call an engagement inventory, so finding out if our readers are actually engaged during the independent reading time, if they're actually doing that independent reading, and then their reading logs, looking at how much they read at school and how much they read outside of school to try and help them. So we kind of compiled all that data together and looked at it, and we determined that there were 3 focus areas. Those were accuracy, comprehension, and fluency. So from there, what we did was conferred with all of the students, so met with them and tried to help them think of a goal. We kind of had in our minds what we thought would be good for each student, but when we conferred with them, we wanted to make sure that they agreed when they looked at their own data so that they could kind of make decisions on their own.
We really wanted them to take ownership of their goals, so it was something that they were buying into. So from there, once we had met and talked about, like, here's going to be the area that you're going to focus on, we had the students set their goal using a Google form. So they chose their focus area, they put their book level and kind of set a goal to grow another level. And then they wrote either a fluency, accuracy, or comprehension goal. And then we had them write an action plan. So what steps are you going to do to actually make your goal? What are you going to do next to get there? And then we wanted to make sure that they're always thinking about their goal and going back to it. So we have a poster posted with their reading goals, and you can kind of see what different kids chose. And then each of the students has, in my classroom, they don't have desks, so they have like bins, they have their goals written and their action plan. So it's always in their mind. They can always see it, always be looking back and thinking about what they need to be doing.
So the last thing that we do with them is just ongoing practice. So we're constantly reviewing with them, asking them to reflect on whether or not they think they're meeting their goal. And as we gather more data throughout the year, like right now, we're close to the end of the trimester, so we're having kids do more running records, and we're figuring out accurate or updated book levels for them. So sharing that information with them and make sure that they're still on track to meet their goals, or to help them along the way if they feel like they're not. So it's a constant reflection piece and keeping those goals at the forefront for them. Every time we confer with them, we make sure that it's focused on their goals. We know that goal setting is such a high leverage practice, and it's going to increase achievement, so we're really focusing on that for our kids. So I hope that gives you a little bit more information about what it means to set goals. We were very intentional in that we didn't just jump to, here's how we set goals. It really is a process that we're using data, and then we're putting that data out on the rubrics to see where everybody's at, and then we make a goal. Where do you want to get? Where do you want to go next? So it's very process-oriented, it's very intentional, and we hope that you know a little bit more about goal setting and why that's so important on our Eye on the Goal plan after what you saw tonight. And we have one more little clip that shows a first grader setting a goal.
And sorry, what does he want us to do as a leader?
How he wants us to tell what this means.
So he wants us to sound like we're asking a question, right? Yeah. So if you read that page, do I have an egg on my head? Is that reading it with a question mark? What do you think that would sound like?
Do I have an egg on my head?
Yeah, do I have an egg on my head? So what do you think about your goal setting here?
To sound like that.
To sound like the character, do you think that would be a good goal to set down then for you? All right, let's write that down.
Thank you again. Any questions for us tonight? Yes, Brett.
The goal setting always interests me, especially when the kids are doing it, and that's who should be making those
Yes,
goals,
yes.
with help from the teachers.
Mhm.
Do the teachers find out a lot that they're just doing, okay, the next step, or do they try and challenge a lot of the kids who are capable of it?
Really good question. We're always looking at where, so that's the whole point of the rubric. We want to know not just what they're assessed, and we don't just look at the assessment alone. The kiddos get to see where they're at, and then they look on the rubric, and they look at the different levels, as you can see even from Lucy's, and so they look at, here's where I'm at, what is my next step, where do I, so if there's someone who is at the proficiency level at a 3, we still want them to grow and go on to that next level. So we are always pushing to the next. We want to make it rigorous enough for students to be growing. As we know, that's something we have to work on as a system, is growing our students, even the ones that are performing higher. Sure, absolutely.
I'd like to speak to that a little bit further because I do have a passion for the gifted and talented children as well. And oftentimes the kids will come in and they are scoring very high on the rubric already. And so one of the things we can do now with our collaborations being at the same time is we can ask the other grade, can I have your rubric? Because maybe my first grader needs to start at the second grade rubric. So I'll pass this around as evidence. These are the equivalent of the SLO that you saw my children working on for kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth. So we can go vertically and try to challenge the children on a rubric if they've already exceeded our expectations in first grade or whatever grade. Okay.
Any other questions? I'm not sure if we're done yet. At some point I just wanted to walk through the graphing or the graphs of information. I just don't know when.
Scorecard.
Yeah, the scorecard.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I'm not sure if I don't want to jump ahead if you're not there.
No, this was our presentation.
Okay, thank you for that too, and for as Brett said, the goal setting. I just got some questions. I'm wondering if you could help walk me through. So you provided the scorecards here, which is great. I'm just not sure exactly what it's telling me. I know that DPI has an embargo on the scores that we were able to get last year, but I guess as far as like student achievement, student growth, and closing the gap, can you kind of walk me through briefly? I don't like it. What this is actually telling me.
Sure, so the scorecard?
Yeah, I can kind of guess some of it here. I think you're eyeing the goal. You had, as far as the PAL score, you wanted to reach that. I can kind of see where that is, but my main thing would be, so as an example, the first graph on the WKCE and Badger reading scores, the aggregate really jumps up. I'm just trying to understand that.
So are you looking at the Badger score?
Right. Is that a,
Right.
Is that a result of from 45%? Is the way I'm reading
Right.
it.
Yeah, no, I just looked at it.
Yeah, and then it jumps up to 75 over a year. Is that?
And if you remember, I think what you're comparing is WKCE 2 years ago to Badger this year. Is that what you're looking at?
I'm not sure. I guess
Yes,
that's
it is.
what I'm asking. Well, what's
So,
that?
yeah, and yeah, we did have, you can see there's quite a jump. Actually,
Okay.
all areas except I think there was one, I believe it was for
Do you wanna look at
math. I just looked at it, so it's
I
sort
know
of
you
fresh in
have
my
it,
head.
but it's not
Yep.
like
I
right
think
on.
that it may be
Yeah.
online too.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, no, yeah, and I know, I knew what you're talking about. So, yeah, we did have a jump. So we went from, in all areas, and I have sorry, fresh in my head. We went from, well, I don't have to go through all of them, but the only place that we didn't go up in actually was math 4th grade. And we did make a jump. The hard part about comparing those, and part of why I didn't even put them up today and we didn't speak to it, is because they're so different. WKCE from Badger, and so we were very happy to see that our scores went up in all of the areas, and even the one that we didn't, I believe was, again, 4th grade in math, we went down slightly, but it was, very, like 2 percentage points, I believe it was. But yeah, so really significantly went up was that reading in, or actually our aggregate reading went from 45% up to 75% in reading. So I hope that it was due to a lot of our hard work in our school and all the really great things that we have been doing. And actually this goal setting process and assessments, we've been on a 3-year journey on this. I don't know if I'll need this anymore, but we've really been on a 3-year journey where we're trying to close those gaps, and we've been working on it, although it's rather new on our district. Eye on the goal, we've actually been working on it for several years. And you heard Shar talk about collaboration early on and using data and using that to guide our instruction. And I'd like to think that a lot of the work we've done in that has helped us to grow in our scores.
So, and you're, thank you, and you're actually, you get to be the one, just the first one doing
Sure.
So, and so is this the WKCE and Badger for the district-wide or specific to test corners?
That was ours.
Okay, so then the way I'm reading this is that the grade, so then
that
all
was
of the
Badger,
other ones
right.
last year, so 10, 11, 12, 13 were WKCE.
Right, correct.
And then the Badger exam came
last year.
So
and remembering the
we really
difference.
don't know if that jump was doing anything until I guess they take the Badger exam this year again.
Which will
And then
be
we'll have
different
that
this year, yeah.
Okay.
And this year
Okay,
there's a
that's
different one, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and so that's why you might not see it in the color like
Got
you
it.
did, before.
You just provided all these nice graphs. I'm like,
Yeah.
so.
And it is exciting to look at, it was very nice, obviously, to see the growth in all of those areas. And again, I'd like to, say that it is. We've been working very hard on closing our gaps and working on collaboration, and our teachers have just been absolutely incredible with the amount of time and effort that they've put in on a daily basis. Shar, I think was the other, mentioned the collab times, and that sometimes teachers actually opt to come in at 7:30, which our start time is really 8 o'clock. And they, on their own accord, at their own decision making, decide they need more collaboration time, and so they come in early. They also, I can't even count the number of times they meet multiple days, not just that one day a week. They give up their lunch time. I mean, it really has been the efforts of our, our whole staff, our coaches, our teachers, just working. I can't even tell you how incredible the work has been in our building.
And then so thank you. And the last thing I see on the PAL, so your eye on the goal, so your eye on the goal, that's specific to the
Sure.
DC.
Yep.
And you, as a group, developed that, and you
Right.
came up with that 98%.
Yep.
And then right now I'm showing 90. If I'm reading right, 95.6.
Right.
96. So then
In
you're really
first-
expecting a pretty good jump.
Right, and basically what we did is we took where they were at and we want to grow from there. So we took what we thought it was a reasonable amount of growth in each of those areas. And that's why they're all a little bit different too, because just like a rubric, you want to look at where you were at and see what's attainable, our SMART goal, right? That we want it to be attainable.
Thank you very much for including it in that eye on the goal format. It's very easy to understand. It's right.
Right. Right.
The rest of it, the meaningfully engaged, I think I get all of that. My last question is maybe to you, Dr. Thompson. So the last part, the college and career readiness, is that
That's the pathways.
yeah, is that, how does that factor in?
Sure. So for our pathways, we have steps at certain grade levels at elementary, at middle, and high school that we track. And so every school will have this section included in their scorecard. And actually, Ted Gennerman in the back leads the scorecards with Kim Crosby at Bailey, who helps us bring the data together for a consistent look across our system. And so Pathways is our college and career readiness to make sure that we're looking at for first grade, third grade, and fourth grade at the elementary level. If students are reading at grade level or above, that's what we'll be expecting, and certain book levels at each one of those grades. And so they analyze that, and how close are we to making sure that 100% of our kids are on the path to succeed. So this is a longitudinal.
So we're tracking that as far back as
First grade.
school.
Yep. And if you notice, like, not every grade is represented in that. Is it first, fourth, third, and fourth, I believe, at the elementary level. And we were very intentional of how we picked those three. One, we wanted to get a baseline in first grade, and you want to see at the very start where they're at. Third grade studies show that if you're on, if you're on track in third grade, that you'll be successful. If you don't, we have a harder time catching up. So we thought that was a significant grade to focus in on. And then again in fourth grade, because it's the last grade that they're in the elementary level before they go on to middle school. So we were really intentional of grades that we picked.
Okay. And then this would also be a tool for plugging the gap. So if you saw on that longitudinal that something wasn't, or if it was askew, then you could jump in with whatever tools we have.
Interventions.
Closing the gap
Right.
and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Good.
That's all I have. Thank you very much. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I've got one, going back to the goal setting.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brett had brought up, as far as students setting their goals and where they place it. Have you had issues with students setting their goals farther than they probably have reach of? And then how do you react to that? Because they got to have some success, and if their goal setting is too far from, they won't have success.
We really collected so many pieces of data that we had so much that we were sharing with them. Like, here are the things you've done, here are the things you've shown us, that they really knew exactly where they really needed to go. So they weren't picking things that were too far off. And we also talked about how it's like we're setting a short-term goal. And if you meet it, we can set another goal. So I don't think we had any that were too far out there.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Our next superintendent item is just a reminder that the joint convention occurs in January, the 20th through the 22nd. And if you're interested in attending, let Dar know and she'll sign you up. Meet any of you?
I'm letting you know.
Okay. And Chris?
I won't have a choice, so yes.
Yes, Brett. Great. So the next is the summer energy savings. We had our second year of 4-day weeks during the summer, and we plan accordingly. And it's a process to avoid energy costs and to hopefully save. In the summer of 2014, we did save a significant amount. In 2015, it was more of a cost avoidance process. We will go another year in 2016. We're already starting our planning for the summer. And as you can see, as you might have noticed in the scorecard for Test Corners, the increase in students' attendance in summer school. So certainly as we grow programs, we will be spending more on energy because we have to actually serve kids in our schools for that, and we're gladly do that. So it's a positive opportunity. So we will do it for another year and report back after next summer. Conversations with the superintendent. Had our second conversation last week at Test Corners, actually here. Sue was there. And two other non-parents actually attended as well. We had a nice, lively conversation about a number of topics. The next superintendent conversation is at Muskego Elementary on February 16th, so in the morning. So just trying different times. That was over noon. for the one last week. AP recognitions, I just wanted to thank again both President Pifalski and Board Member Chris Buckmaster for joining Todd Irvine and Chrissy Brooks and myself as we went around the high school and recognized 20 high school AP teachers, surprised them with that, and what? And one new teacher, right? That's true, right? So it was a great opportunity to recognize some staff members who are working hard to grow the AP program. Lastly, we have a program that we would like to share with you, and actually Todd Irvine's here to share a component of it, and Jeff Peterson will chime in as well. But just to kind of set it up in an effort for the district to really kind of look outside of how we typically maintain our financial sustainability. We're looking at ways to look at alternative revenue sources, and Julie's going to be helping us along the way with sponsorships, advertising, those types of things that a lot of private industries do and private schools do. And it is a new venture for public schools, but we are embracing it and looking forward to kind of diving into that aspect. But one of the first things we knew that we needed to do is build some communication efforts and connections with alumni and also with our community at large. And so Jeff will be supporting some efforts from our system related to that. And we've been exploring different partnerships and over the last number of months, and we have decided to move forward with a company called Alumni Nation, and they will be supporting us as we create a presence in our system called Warrior Pride. And this really just matches nicely with what's going on at the high school. Rick actually, President Pifalski joined us at one of our meetings earlier in September, just to kind of get an overview of what was going to happen. Attached is a little PDF about like how they support school systems. There are 9 districts in the state of Wisconsin, but Alumni Nation is actually nationwide, and so there are a number of districts all over the country who are kind of getting onto this process of connecting with alumni and with the communities that kind of are connected mostly with high schools, because that's where students are graduating from, and it's where you can connect with that alumni. So I just would invite Mr. Irvine to come on up and just share from his perspective how this nicely connects with the vision of the high school.
Yeah, thank you. Extremely excited about this opportunity. One of those first phone calls or emails that I received early on in my tenure here was from an alumni who graduated in the 60s, who was asking if he could find some time to come back to share his glory and pride about our high school with a few businessmen he was working with in China. Now, this gentleman works in an international business and wanted to bring 2 very wealthy businessmen from China to his high school to show these 2 gentlemen what high school is like in America. So here's a guy who had graduated just about 50 years ago, who still, of all the places he's been, wanted to come back to Muskego. And I think about that concept of that, the pride that our students have when they come in, the students who are sitting here today and that will be leaving us, unfortunately, way too soon. And just really finding a way to establish this concept that once you're a warrior, you're always a warrior. And how do we keep track of that? And how do we ensure we have connections and relationships that will be lasting? And how do we make sure we're not missing out and celebrating some of the awesome things that we're doing? And how do we create these opportunities to establish that database? So this was a great idea that popped up, and I'm just really excited because I think it will help us continue to build bridges with the people who walk through these halls and go off to do great things and change the world as we know it, and for them to not forget where they came from.
Jeff will provide us with a little bit of, like an overview. Thanks very much, Mr. Irvine. How we're going to meet a launch date of February of 2016 to kind of get this going, and what are some of the high-level efforts that we're going to start with.
Sure. Thanks, Kelly. So we do have a pretty aggressive timeline for what we would call a hard launch mid-February. And some of the key things that need to happen before then, and it is taking a lot of resources, and That's not in a negative sense. Just taking a lot of resources and a lot of people really to pull this together, because each thing takes a unique skill set in order to support the work and to help this be successful. So presently, we're working on securing our alumni database. We've been able to reach back through Infinite Campus for 10 years worth of graduates from Muskego High School. Tony Spence is helping with that, and so is Melanie Strom. As of right now, we have over 40